I mean, we always hear you only live once. So, yeah, that's true, but we also die once too. It's the little things that matter.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Noongar Wadandi Mort. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
Scratch the surface and everyone has a story. Welcome, Kaya, to the Wisdom of Women.
Today's guest is Professor Samar Aoun, 2023 WA Australian of the Year. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. So good to be with you.
Hailed as an international leader in changing the way we talk about death.
Yes, now welcome. And you have this wonderful quote, which I'm going to read out. I just love this. We only die once, so let's make it a good one. Honestly, tell us more about your work to break the taboo of talking about dying.
I mean, we always hear you only live once. So, yeah, that's true. But we also die once too. And people don't really want to talk about this. Although death is part of life. And, of course, with my work as a researcher in palliative care, even health professionals tend to not sort of talk to dying patients. It's all about hope and hope. But sometimes the hope is not about surviving their terminal illness. And they need to be more honest and frank with the patients. So it's this is really a call for the community as well as service providers. And until we have these frank discussions about death, dying, grief and loss in the community, it's always going to be a taboo and something scary. Or some of the interviews I had, it's weird. They told me, why do you get involved in this?
I was just going to ask that question. How on earth did you get into this part of the palliative care?
Well, yeah, I wasn't a palliative care researcher till 2004 when I was asked by a palliative care group to join them to do some research with them. So my background is public health. I was looking at all kind of diseases on a population level. All the chronic diseases that, we all are suffering from now, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, all that stuff. And then when I joined this palliative care team, what grabbed me is the plight of motor neuron disease. It's like a death sentence. Like we still don't have a cure or a treatment for it. And even palliative care is not touching them till like the last week of their life. And that really, I'm thinking, that's really rough. We need to have palliative care accessible to everyone, everywhere. And
do you think, in a way, the terminology of palliative care maybe needs remarketing, in the sense of we immediately think of palliative care as very much towards the end, but palliative care can exist for what I'm presuming years?
Since the time of diagnosis, it needs to exist.
Wow.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with all the funding model, we have reduced palliative care to end-of-life care. It is much longer than this, and it's about a good quality of care until death comes, and this is where end-of-life care kicks in. Now, palliative care people all over the world, they've done a miserable job of really letting the community know what is palliative care. That's why as soon as people hear palliative care, they think they're dying the following day. It's a really very holistic way of looking after people. It does have the clinical and symptom management, which basically everyone seems to be focusing on, but they're really ad hoc in terms of psychosocial support, spiritual, existential, bereavement support, family carer support. It's all part of the equation of delivering good palliative care.
So you talk about how clinical support, in fact, probably only plays a very small percentage in that. You're saying about 5%, really. The rest of it becomes community and holistic approach.
Exactly. Anybody who's got a life-limiting illness and dying is only in contact with a health professional 5% of their time. Absolutely. So what do they do with the 95%? There's so much the community can do because they are with their family, friends, school friends, or faith organizations, their pets, their internet. And sadly, a lot are alone, which we found from the trial we did in the Southwest. So,
Okay. And probably as well, someone taking back control of how they spend their final years or, taking control of that.
And exactly, this is why we have advanced care planning, I mean, start planning how you want to live. too many Australians, in the thousands, are not dying in a way and in a place that is really reflective of their choices and their values, because they've never really discussed their choices and their values, or they didn't know what their choices were. So this is why it happens when you're not talking about it whatsoever. They die, and then the family starts squabbling over, oh, do they need a funeral? What kind of funeral? All these things that they need to be prepared beforehand. What legacy, you want to leave behind? I mean, this really precious time to, keep talk about this, have the conversation opened about that. So when we found that need in the community, that it's leaving people going into hospital in the last few days of their life, which is robbing them from dignity, from control over their life. You don't need to be in a hospital. After somebody heard me talk, they contacted me and they said their young sister was never told that, she's really, really terminal. So they kept giving her more chemo and more chemo and more chemo, and of course nothing worked, and she died. And this sister is reflecting that her sister could have really spent the last few months of her life with her kids more, rather than being totally knocked out by chemo, not with it, and trying to, probably extend another month of her life when she could have had much better quality of life with her kids that she's left behind. So we are living in a death-denying society. We think, by keep curing and curing. But I mean, the science is there that we still have, conditions where there's no cure for it, and this is why motor neuron disease, I'll put it at the top of the list, because while with cancer, there is some hope. People still think, there is, and there are, a lot of clinical trials happening in all kinds of diseases. But, so many of the motor neuron disease people tell me when I interview them, we wish we have cancer, we'd have more hope, because there's something happening every now and then. We hear there's something happening in the field.
That's so true. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, but in motor there's nothing happening in the field.
It's a death sentence, we'll just leave you.
And it's a slow death sentence.
No, really. The average time would be 2.5 years to 3 years. It's a very progressive disease and quick. That's why the family carers gets really depressed, and their bereavement experience is so hard, because they just don't have the time to comprehend all that quickness, And our support services in general, like the NDIS, or if they have an aged care package, are not quick enough to service the support needs of these people. So say NDIS, by the time, they fill the information, they want a normal wheelchair.
Yes.
By the time they get it, they're already bedridden. They can't even move to use it.
They need something.
They need something, and hence why the Motor Neuron Disease Association is filling that gap. We have like an enormous warehouse of so many donated equipment that we just give those families to make them have some quality of life.
So when they need it, they've got
exactly.
it. So how responsive, say, are government policies and people maybe reflecting on what you're saying for the motor neuron disease?
Yeah, we are making a lot of noises at the federal level in terms of the NDIS is not really servicing, the needs of motor neuron disease, and again, aged care packages. So at the federal level, we have the MND Association, our peak body. So they're very close to people in Canberra, and they. But we're gonna try and do have more noises. Supposedly this year I've got this platform, so I'll make more noises myself as well, and our state association here.
So how do we change the conversation in the community with us all about death? What's the process?
What's the process is getting the community their hands into how do you support someone who's caring, dying, or grieving. Yeah. At the moment, we watch things happen because we think the professional services do it better. And certainly, this is the impression in rich countries and developed countries, because we do have really good health services. So that's de-skilled the community, even discouraged them from being courageous enough to say, well, I want to be part of caring after my loved ones. And you'll find in places like India, and other developing countries, the community networks are really strong because they can't rely on the government giving them anything in terms of,
How interesting
Yeah,
is that?
so one once goes up, the other one comes down, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Now, we really value what we have here, but let's bring the community at equal partners with health services. This is what we're trying to do. And then we have a really, really good system, and then we can have palliative care available to everyone and everywhere. So we're not relying on health professionals to do it, particularly that 95% of the time people are with us. They're not with the health professional people.
So do you think it's a symptom of modern society where our communities aren't as connected as what they used to be?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you've got also in the Western culture the privacy, the confidentiality, all that stuff that people really, hold on to. But it's a detriment. It is at the detriment of really building their social networks around them when they need them, and even before. You can't build it, in the last week you're dying.
No.
It's a long life journey whereby, you need them throughout all your, crisis that you have. Everybody has got problems, all that, as you go, every kind of step of your journey. But we're not reaching out. We've lost the skill of asking for help. Because, again, in the Western culture, we feel if we ask for help, people are going to look at us as if we are really weak.
Yes.
Yep.
We're not really helping. Well, goodness me, you are very judged, exactly. And again, during bereavement, people judge you how much you've showed, emotion, how much you haven't, So because they haven't been used to it for a long time, we've lost that. We've become a really disconnected society. I mean, with half of the cohort of those families who were come to the Connector program, they were living alone.
Wow.
Not because they have no families, they're disconnected from them. And
That's
and they
sad.
don't feel they can ask. A mother can't feel asked to ask her daughter to come and give her a shower,
sad, isn't it?
Or this is how we've become.
So we really need to encourage each other and to stand up and have the confidence to be involved, even if they are in hospital, to be involved there and to get involved and help.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we got to have those two meetings. Those people who need help need to ask for help, because they also have to remember they're not only helping themselves, they're helping their community to get the skills to help each other. Because if they don't have anyone to practice on,
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's
we are
actually
still
22.
de-skilled, you know?
we've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say that in our street here that we live in,
Oh, yes.
we have a wonderful community. I'm just reflecting on that because haven't we? We've got people
Well, yes, with
everywhere we go when we've had people that have, suffered a loss or along the way. So I think we're very lucky. Our groups
I'm sure
like
there are.
that,
I'm
but
sure.
it's just
Yeah.
everyone needs to
We
just
need to
connect
bring it back.
that little bit more.
Yeah, we need to bring it back at a much wider level, say we're here at Bunbury, Southwest, where we are operating now. And certainly, the ethos is, everyone is interested in it. I mean, Compassion Communities is an international movement, but it's just, how do you operationalize it? That was the actual hard thing about it.
So difficult.
And how do you evaluate it to actually give the hardcore data to decision makers and fund holders that it is a model of care that works and is efficient. So these were the two basically problems of really letting everyone know about compassionate communities. And what we've done here in the Southwest, we've done both. We were able to, as we call, put it into operation by having a volunteer group called the Compassionate Connectors, who were trained to go and deliver the practical and social support for families who need that, whether they have family carers or they're by themselves. They were able to do this. Now, the interesting thing about this model is that the connectors are not the one who do everything for the family. They open up their social networks. They will ask them, okay, so who do you have in your social networks?
Right.
They might say, we have the neighbor. Okay, do you think your neighbor will be able to mow the lawn, because the garden is so important to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, but I can't ask him. So the connector does the asking for him.
Yeah.
So the neighbor becomes a caring helper. She needs, ironing. Do you think you've got, I don't know, a cousin or somebody, who would be able... Sometimes they'll tell you, yes, we do, but we don't feel we can ask them. But so the connectors go and do the asking on their behalf.
They step on. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're really connecting those who want to give help and those who ask for help, and they've never really connected before, because we have a lot of people in the community who say, we want to ask for help, but we're too scared to do the wrong thing, or we don't know if people want us, so that we're doing that now. And the other amazing group are the caring helpers. Now, those are the ones who are the community now of those people, which is very sustainable. They're with them throughout the whole journey. So they become friends, but they don't have to become friends. And we found out from the trial that with 50% of our families home alone, so they don't have like a
readily
relative
available
who
person.
No. So what they've done, they looked out, way beyond, this, and what we call them, they facilitated external networks for them. So for instance, there is a mother who have cancer, but she's got young kids. So this lady in the community got a community group to actually do a meal train, for this lady.
Wonderful.
And provide surrogate grannies to come and play with the, because she can't send her kids to daycare because they bring all sorts of viruses, and germs from daycare.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. So she's got, these people around her. Now she can ask them straight now because they're part of her network of supporting her. And so on and so on. We have a church group who actually helped, again, an elderly man who his garden was his love, and it went really pear-shaped. Obviously, he couldn't really look after it because he had so many comorbidities. So this church group, came to us and said we could do something on a Sunday. I said, right, we've got this guy.
Here it is.
So they all went, like all different generations, 5, 6 of them. They just turned the whole garden. Wonderful.
How beautiful is that?
And the guy said it's like a black cloud had lifted from him. To see such a beautiful garden. It's the little things that matter. This is the thing I've really learned from this program.
I always feel like we need to ask everyone to just go and make one connection, maybe even if it is in your street or in a wider social network. Just even if tomorrow you could just make one connection.
This is it. Even the international literature writes about this kind of work because they're called navigators in other parts of the world. These little things is what make people feel loved and return their dignity. Take them to get their prescription, drive them in your car to get their prescription. So this is where we have improved the social connectedness of this cohort of 43 families who were part of this trial. And at the moment we're finishing what we call the effectiveness study, whereby, let me go back to the social connectedness. How did it happen? That they felt less socially isolated. They were able to cope better with their daily activities because people were helping them. We've doubled their social networks who were able to help them, basically. So that's fantastic by itself because once you improve social connectedness in a community, there's a lot of research that showed you live better, you live happier, you live longer than those who don't have good social relationships. In fact, one big trial had showed that if you have strong social relationships, it reduces your risk of mortality far more than if you stopped smoking or you lost weight or you decrease your blood pressure. It is mind-blowing research, honestly.
That's the impact.
Wow. I know. This is how much, because apparently there are biological phenomena that happens within you when you interact with people.
We've got all these chemicals releasing. Do you know what, as a mum, I've always had my 20-second cuddle rule. I never thought I'd have to talk about this, but I remember researching it years and years ago about how the bodies give off chemicals. So I always used to make my kids hug me for 20 seconds.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's amazing that potential of the body in the exchange.
Yes,
of all that.
I know. Yeah. Well, there you go. So we don't need to move any further with this research because the research about the importance of social connectedness is there anyway with all these sort of reducing the risk of mortality. But then the really nice thing now that we found as well is that when we followed this group, what we call the connector group, the intervention, and we compared them to a similar control group, similar in terms of age, gender, diseases, and the home alone status, the intervention group had less hospital admissions in that period. I'll tell you why in a little while. And then the other thing, if they did go in, they had a shorter length of stay. And they had more in contact with community-based services, which are much cheaper than hospital-based services. The reason why, and from we know what's happened in the project, is that people freak out when they're by themselves particularly on the weekend, because there's no services, no formal services who could visit them or they could ring to feel better. But our connectors are there for them on the weekend. They can ring them, talk to them, feel at peace, it's okay, you can wait till Monday or something. So apparently there were a lot of hospital admissions that used to happen on the weekend because of these home alone people, with comorbidities freaking out and admitting themselves to hospital because they didn't have anybody to talk to. I mean, the reason they went in wasn't really medical, it's social, but because of this.
About how connection can just be such a powerful tool.
Yeah, it is. And it's so understated, but I'm so glad we did this research. The other thing, if they did go to hospital, they don't really drag their feet from leaving because now they have someone, they love them in the community, so they can go out
something to go home, someone to go home
That's
to.
it. Well, before, they'd rather stay as long as they could because they're having the social interaction at the hospital. And then why they use more community-based services is because the connectors were making the appointments for them. Because of their disability and tiredness, they couldn't be bothered to wait on the phone, And even some of them with the caring helpers, they transported them to those appointments. So, of course, they went. And it's so much better for them to be in touch with community-based services. So it's a winner whichever you look at it. I am just so excited about telling everyone about this.
So how long has this been in place for?
Well, we started the trial 2020. That's it, really. We finished at the end of last year, so it took 20, 21, 22, 3 years.
Yep.
And we're now going to have a launch of those results. Yeah.
Very exciting.
So you're the first ones to know about them.
That's
there you
very
go.
exciting. Ooh. And I presume with something that clearly is so successful, you would love to see this rolled out everywhere.
Absolutely, yeah. So basically, I think the first step of the rolling out would be in the regional areas, all the WA country health services country areas. Now, I must say that we did this in the partnership with palliative care services and chronic disease services because they were referring those patients to the program.
Right.
When, they felt that they need that extra help and support that they couldn't do under that funding model that we're under, So it was a really good partnership. And the exciting thing about it as well is that it got translated into practice straight away, which means the health service had taken it as a model of care that they will look after now on the long run. So it's not something that just belongs to the community like we've started.
Yeah.
It's something that's now at the heart of how they're going to practice person-centered care with their patients. So that's really exciting. It doesn't happen very often when a researcher produces an evidence and it gets taken up by a health service straight away. It's usually years and years and years until something happens.
Incredible.
So
it is
that's,
outstanding.
again, a big win. And I must say it's a big win for the health service. That's great that they really understood what we're on about, worked with us. We're happy to take the risk because, again, to have volunteers go into people's home of their patients, and the health service is very risk averse.
I was going to say in this day and age as well, all that scenario just makes people cringe, really, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Especially a health service, and what could come into all this litigation.
What could possibly happen?
But we had such fantastic connectors. I mean, they really had lived experience, mature, wise. I mean, when we say we had a day of training for them, more of the essentials of what the program is about, how we work with the health service, what are the code of conduct of, WACS, what's advanced care planning, all that stuff. But the attributes, they had them themselves. That's not something you can give them. And they were amazing. So that's why on the 27th of March, we're training another lot because people come and go from the program according to their personal circumstances. They can give as much as they can for how long as they can, but it doesn't mean they can be with us on the long term. But we need to keep training people in the community.
And every little bit helps.
Oh, absolutely.
That one singular connection.
Yeah, and maybe some people will come and attend the program, but then say things have changed in their life and they can't commit to being part of it. But at least they've got the skills, they can just do it anywhere they want, in their own communities. So what we're hoping to do now is roll it out into all the country, WA, to start off with. There is a lot of interest, again, because of the exciting results that's come out. The next step would be throughout metro area. Again, the health department there are very interested. And, you know, I'm speaking to local government about this. You know, I'll come again and tell you about the our work with local government here.
Is there more a demand in regional areas? Do they tend to have that lack of connection?
It's not the demand as such. We've got communities more connected than metro area, maybe.
That's really
you know,
interesting,
even though,
isn't it?
because the smaller ones, everybody knows
Each
one
other.
another. Yeah, so
And more inclined to be helpful?
yeah, more inclined to be helpful. I mean, again, another nice example of helpfulness. We had a lady who moved from a smaller country town to here, and she had a lot of, you know, anxiety issues and other comorbidities. So she couldn't bring herself to drive her car and find out where supermarket is, where the library is, where. So I did a call to a Rotary Club, and I said, have you got somebody who could sit with this woman? And she doesn't want to be driven. She wants to drive, but somebody with her, just make sure they tell her where the important things for her in Bunbury. And then one of the ladies, she said, I can do that. So she went with her like on a couple of occasions, showed her that. That's all is needed, you know. It's just somebody giving the time. It's again the little things. It sort of made this, and this lady said her life grew from a golf-sized ball to a basketball now. You know, like it's interesting how they just
the explanation for it.
It's lovely. I had all these things stick in my mind all the time. So hopefully, you know, and again, Palliative Care Australia are going to work with us to again adapt it to the eastern states, because I mean there are a lot of people who are, you know, interested and involved in the compassionate communities research kind of thing. It's just how do you actually get the services to work with the community. So we have a nice model here. That's how will it work in other communities is up to the communities to adapt it the way
to suit their
exactly.
Oh, that is brilliant. It's so good to hear how successful it's been. I love it.
It's so interesting to listen.
Yeah, it
Simple,
is.
common sense.
Yes.
That we've forgotten
That's
about, and
it.
compassion that we've seemed to have forgotten.
Yes, I mean,
over
once
the
upon a
years.
time we were born at home and we died at home, and we had the whole neighborhood around us.
Yes.
Yeah. But this is the thing. Do dying people need to be in hospital?
No, exactly. This is what I mean. Death has become too professionalized and too medicalized, and it doesn't need to be like this because, you know, it's the community that does it well, and they've done it for a long time. And of course, I talk about my dad's experience into how it gelled in my head. When he died, they rang me from Lebanon, and they said, you must come straight away. We don't take time to bury our dead. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's going to take me 24 hours to get there anyway. I mean, like, I said, please hold on, you know, I'm coming. Anyway, I rang the office to say I'm going to be late from chairing a research meeting, but let them start. My dad died. I just want to book my ticket first, make sure I can get there. Anyway, I've done all that, went back to the meeting, and, you know, walked in, and everybody carried on with the meeting as if I'm okay, like, you know, like
No
nobody
one
asked me.
was-
No.
Oh, wow.
No.
We are so sorry.
And they would all have professionals.
Yeah, wow.
Like, I'm thinking, I'm sure they care, but they just feel they don't know what to say. I mean, is it to that extent? Like, so it just kept in mind. Anyway, I didn't have time to really ponder on it a lot, because the following day it was Australia Day, and I went straight to Lebanon. And then, but the experience there was just amazing. I don't know why I don't recall this, but I never had somebody as close to me die like before. Thank goodness, you know, that's my dad. And just the church community just did everything, like from emotional support to food support and those 3 days of mourning where, you know, from morning till evening, you know, everybody who knows you in Lebanon comes to pay their respects. And I caught up with so many people I haven't seen since I was a kid. And of course, they all knew about my granddad, my dad, my family. And we cried, we laughed, we ate together, we reminisced, you know. And then by the end of 3 days, I was ready to come back, and I was fine. And, you know, my family here were like thinking, oh, I'm going to need a lot of support when I come back. I said, I just felt my acute grief just resolved because of all that love and dignity and respect and that I had in that community in Lebanon. And then on the way back on the plane, which is again a very long flight, so I could really think, well, okay, that's exactly what I think. You know, it's death, dying, grief, and loss is better done by the community. because really death is a social event with a medical component. It's not how now it's become a medical event with a social component. So we need to go back to making it a social event.
Yeah,
I know.
Of course.
I know, and that's my, esteemed colleague Alan Callagher. When he said that, I'm thinking exactly what you said. Of course,
Yeah.
this is how it always was.
It's like an epiphany moment to
Yes.
suddenly realise,
Yes.
because everything has been just so pushed the other way.
Yes, yes, yeah. So we just kind of, everybody's gonna help in getting the balance back again into these things. Yeah, the core issues of living and dying.
Yeah. You mentioned heading back home to family. It's interesting what you had to do with your husband leaving a war-torn country, so to speak.
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Yeah, no,
just
that's fine.
reflecting on that?
Yeah, so the Lebanese war broke up when we were like adolescents, and this is the time when you are really feeling, your world is crushed around you. Like, what is happening? The whole country is at war with Lebanese against each other. It's not like we have an invasion like now Russia to Ukraine. Like, it was like you become very disillusioned. What's happening around you, and the politics is very, very complicated. I won't go near there, but I think for me, I'm thinking, right, we don't have a choice how we die. It's put on us, and it's either sniper fire or a car bomb or an indiscriminate shelling that you don't know how it was.
I just cannot imagine
I know.
existing in that environment.
I know. I mean, so many nights we just slept in the shelter. Like we just and even our building, we were on the 5th floor. We had our walls just had holes in them because of this, the bombs going through, Or if you were from not the correct religion of the area and you stepped into it, you're killed automatically. Like, it was thinking madness, absolute madness for no real reason or a good cause that was happening. And that really left a lot of, I guess, distress in my heart. Lucky I was, luckier than most that I was able to go to the UK and finish my studies, because again, schools were not working anymore.
So how did that work? Did you just decide one day, that's it, we've got to get out of here? The grief of having to...
Well, I went when I left I was 16, so by myself to start off with. Really? So I went I went to a boarding school in the UK. I spoke Arabic and French at the time. I didn't speak English. So I had a 3 months of crash course in English, so that I'm able to then go to a proper school and do my TE or whatever it's called. It's called A levels. Yeah. And then I went to university there, did my first degree, then came back to Lebanon and did my master's in public health. And it's during that time when we had the Israeli invasion, like things went on for a long time. And I, recall I was standing outside the perimeter of the university, and then all these tanks of a foreign country just coming down. And I think, I can't believe it. We are still facing this. But now, of course, it's gone to another extreme where we have another country invading us at that stage. It's just the disappointments, of just what the Lebanese people were going through for so long. Yeah. Again, back into being, in shelters. But it's during that time when I came back and I was doing my master's, and we were doing a research project, which was very, very important because we never knew what is the health of the Lebanese population, what services we need to have. Because we don't have a census like you do here. In fact, nobody wants a census because, again, it's about people don't want to know how many Christians and how many Muslims we have, because that tips the balance of power. Because because if one group knew that they were the dominant one, they start calling for more, seats in the parliament and want more influence. And so we've never had a census, so we don't know what are the needs of our population. So we had this fantastic, project funded by an American Rockefeller Foundation, and I was so thinking, my God, this is really, it's great to have something happening in Beirut. It was just the city of Beirut at the time. But again, it was just, how do you go and knock at people's door and ask them those survey questions when you've got shelling all over the place happening? It was just amazing how resilient those group of researchers. So I had like 10 interviewers, and they were grouped into a team of 2. So I had like 5 groups, and every morning I'll dispatch them to one area of Beirut where I think it's safe for the day or for the hour that they're there, because things change. It was like just doing research under duress is just, this is why I'm thinking doing it here is a dream. Like, you don't have these problems.
Is dedicated research that you're doing there, isn't it? Not letting a wall get in your way.
I know, exactly. And then you know, those interviewers, young university students, they still come back at the end of the day with those surveys completed in the shelter. So they go down with the family, you know, and they say, what are we going to do? We're just stuck there. We might as well complete this, you know. It was just a way of life. That's what I'm saying. It just, you become so resilient. And then the few times when they didn't turn up, well, then I had to, you know, as I said when you heard me, I had to go and look for them, you know. And then I'm like walking into those devastated areas.
Anything could have happened.
I know. And I, you know, talk about risk management. We had nothing of that. I don't think even my line manager knew I did that, because I didn't even think about it. I just made sure I want these young kids back, you know, from wherever they are being held. Because, you know, they may think, oh, they are spying on them for the other militia group and vice versa and things like this. Although they had a card from the Ministry for Health, they're doing research and this is what's it about, and they need to have, you know, permit to, you know, to permission to enter, but didn't make any effect really on the militia. I mean, in general, they were really illiterate and couldn't care less about anything. So I'm just like walking into this devastated areas of Beirut, tanks everywhere, smoke everywhere, and I'm thinking, where have you seen 2 young adults here who are doing surveys, you know? Yes, no. Anyway, till they told me where they had been locked up, you know, and then I'll just walk in, I'll say, right, these are university students, they're not here to spy on you, could you let them out? Well, lucky, that was during beginning of like those, another cycle of war. They used to respect women, I suppose, you know, a bit more at the time. So they were, let me in and I'll take those 2 back.
So you became a hostage negotiator.
Oh,
this is incredible.
I know, just from doing research. This is why I'm thinking it's simple here, the way we do things.
Yeah, there's no one to negotiate with. It's just,
It is absurd. And when I see that book, we actually wrote the whole results. We managed to do it in some record time. And it's all now published, and it's been like the Bible for like, you know, how do you provide services for the Lebanese community? I know, we did it.
Wow. Kudos to you.
It's amazing.
Well,
incredible circumstances.
I mean,
You're
I
very determined, aren't you?
I am.
Determined.
That's a good description.
And I find it interesting as well. Do you think women also just have that natural capacity as well sometimes to, you know, particularly in the field that you're in?
You know, I did notice that, to be honest, because I mean, like when we stick our neck out more, and one good thing is that, which, as I said, I'm just trying to learn to be more thick-skinned, because I'm not, but it seems it's a really good attribute to have. I stopped taking offenses personally. While men in general can't do that, you know. So we were like, say, in one committee when we had a lot of difficulties that we needed to sort out. And the men just resigned and left because they said, oh, it's too difficult. I don't want, you know, my reputation to be, you know, impacted by that. And I'm thinking, but if we all left, who do we leave this charitable organization to? Like,
what happens?
So I stuck there. And I made the changes that needed to happen. I went into the fight that needed to be happen. And then 3 days later, those men, I met them, they said, hat off to you. You really did it. Well done. Sorry we were not able to support you then. And I'm saying, well, what can I say? I know, you left me by myself to actually do everything.
Well, really, an apology doesn't cut it, but
no,
that's okay. Yeah. If it made them feel better.
Okay.
Oh, I love it.
So yes,
Yeah.
we are determined, and we kind of like if you are really focused and you know that the aim at the end is noble and you're gonna achieve something good for the community from it, you carry on, because the personal thing doesn't come in anymore. Well, that's anyway how I think. That's why I don't get shy from doing the hard fights, because if the destination is the good one where we need to go for the community, it's fine.
You do what you need to do to get there,
yes,
don't you?
Yes. I don't shy away from it, and I say no. I need to save myself and my reputation and all that stuff, and or roll in a corner and hoping that the storm would go.
Yeah.
No, I stand in the storm.
Yeah.
Terrible. I know. I've been always told. I'm a bit crazy, but never mind.
No, you're impressive. That's what you are.
Depending how people see
Wonderful listening to
And
you.
making the right changes and standing up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's making a difference
Yes.
in people's lives and death. And if I know this is where we are getting there, I will just keep going. And as I said, the train is going, and people will jump on and off as they wish, depending on their agendas, what suits them, what doesn't suit them. They come back again when they've seen the light a bit more. But that's how life it is.
You're the train driver.
I am the train
You can't
driver.
get off.
No, that's right.
It's just so inspirational, because it makes me want to get out, do stuff, and stand behind you in that storm, and let's go.
And that is what we love about this collective experience
Yes.
and knowledge of wisdom. I love women coming together and having these conversations. It can be so empowering.
It is, and I always read again, I like reading people's life and, what brought them to what they are. And invariably, there are challenges. Nobody got to where they went if they had an easy life.
No,
Exactly right.
It's not a character building. Yeah.
No, that's exactly
So,
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we choose the easy path all the time, we stay where we are, we won't make a difference.
That's so
Making a
true.
difference and making a change, this is what people don't like. And this is the problem in every way of life. But we have to move on and make changes so that we can get better and better in everything we do and aspire for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
So thank you for talking to us about how you're changing the way we see deal with grief and death and life to the end, I guess, and living as a community. It's been really inspiring to me. I've just been like silenced into awe. Wow.
I was just listening. I was, oh my God.
This is what we want. We want the younger ones coming through
Yes.
to be inspired and have role models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to
Like you.
to do what you've said to do, like jump on and help in the community, and that's it. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my role as a researcher is to show the evidence that it works. And of course, once we've got that evidence, there's nothing stopping me, I mean, I want to make sure it's based on something solid, that it's going to work. And that's why for the last 3 years, head down, I was just evaluating that program so that we can get to where we are now. So if anybody would like to join the Connector program, this is part of building the assets of our community. So it's not a tiring thing. It's just about being part of the community and making the people think about building their networks around them. Even health professionals said to us, we used to jump and say, okay, what paid health service do we have to give those people? Now we are asking them, who do you have around you that can help you with that to start off with? So we've changed the way the health service, providers are thinking now, which is great, because that is the sustainable way of doing it. Because if you keep bringing it health services, first of all, they're not available to you anytime you want them.
No.
You need like 2-3 weeks or a month to see anyone, from whether a GP or specialist or psychologist or, Yeah, so, and again, so it's about how do you also support people during their bereavement phase as well. It's a continuation from diagnosis to bereavement that we need to work at.
Wonderful. What a great conversation.
Thank you,
we've had
Samar.
today.
That's
Yeah.
so much to think about.
I mean, I always say, like, you know, with people say, how are we going to talk about death? Oh, my goodness. I said, look, talking about death is not going to kill you.
Yes.
Like, it's not a disease you're going to catch.
This is another great, great quote from you, isn't it? You're just full of them.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
And look, if you've been affected by any of the topics discussed, please visit the support links. And if you want more information, then we will have links provided as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Samar, you've said a lot of quotes.
Yeah.
So what is a quote today, like a favourite quote today?
A little bit of extra one. I know that you sent through some that you particularly liked.
Well, you know, this thing about West Australian of the Year, that certainly wasn't on my bucket list. I mean, it took me like by surprise, and I'm thinking, this is where I mean, you know, you still have time to create a new chapter in your life. You know, when people say I'm too old, or, you know, I can't do this, and you can create it at any time. And, you know, the New South Wales Senior of the Year, Teresa Plain, who is a palliative care nurse. Of course, I met her in Canberra. She's 95.
Oh, my goodness
She still does radio broadcast on palliative care. Oh, she sent me a beautiful email only yesterday. You know, how much she is so impressed with the Connector program and how she wants to now work on it, you know, rolling it out in New South Wales where she is, because she's so sick of talking about what she used to talk for the last 40 years. This is innovative. This is where we need to go. The community needs to be. But when I looked at her, like in Canberra, I had so many good conversations. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's amazing. Yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah, yeah. And then believe in yourself. Yeah. Oh, that is so important.
And not enough women realise that
it.
They do need to have confidence in themselves.
Yes.
We always question.
Yes, I know. I don't know why, as they say, you have the imposter syndrome. And, you know, in Canberra, they were telling us, because, you know, we're all like all these people, recipients of all these awards from all the states. And one of the talk we had, you must have the imposter syndrome. You know, it happens to all the recipients that come. And I'm saying, I don't have it. Why are you telling that?
Good. Yeah, glad to hear that one.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Why do we feel that way? That's true.
Yeah.
We can do it.
There you go.
Yeah, and you see, like, the men are so full of themselves, although sometimes they don't know as much as we do.
Yes.
We really need to change that. You know, put your, you know, point of view forward, and without feeling, you know, intimidated, or, I don't know, it's just a social conditioning of girls and women that
I think it might be right, because I've read some really interesting statistics where they talk about how men, maybe when going for a job, only probably have 10% of the skills required, but their confidence is 90%. Oh. Whereas women turn around and feel they need to have 90% of the skills, and their confidence is about 10%.
That's crazy.
So this is where...
It is so true.
Yeah,
exactly. So we need to turn this around. I mean, learn from men, I suppose. It's one good thing to learn from men.
There you go, men. You know, we can learn something from
just, you know, go in whatever you do with full of confidence. Even if you didn't know everything, it comes, you know, with the job.
Whatever they do, we can do it better.
And we have that compassion, again, and leadership. We need that as well. So that brings me to the Compassionate Bunbury Charter, which is, I didn't have time to talk about it a lot at the breakfast, but... all over the world now, there are cities or towns called compassionate cities or town, which means that communities have pledged to make where they live a more compassionate community, a more compassionate city. So that gives really the bigger picture, a higher vision for everyone in the community to support each other, whether they've got disability, mental illness. We're not just talking about end-of-life care, but it's really driven from that movement, basically. And in Melbourne and other places, local governments were really involved. So we approached the Bunbury City Council here and we said, look, let's start working on something, have community consultations of what people think a compassionate Bunbury needs to be like. So we've done all these consultations. We've had a few conversations, interviews with sort of key leaders here so that they can pledge how they're going to make Bunbury a better community. And the follow-up of all that is that for instance, schools, how they can be better equipped to support each other if they have a child who died, or a teacher who died, or a parent who died. Do they know exactly how to support each other?
Yes.
I don't think so. You know,
No,
so
that wouldn't be a plan that you'd have
No.
in the filing cabinet.
No,
or,
exactly,
is it?
exactly.
It's just
That's
not.
really,
Yeah.
really important.
yeah, even workplaces. So if you have somebody again, you know, your colleague, you know, is struggling through whatever, you know, their child or their wife died. Do you know how to support them when they come back to work? I mean, 2 days of bereavement is nothing. Like, you know, they just have time to go to the funeral. That's
Yeah.
it. But that
Yeah.
grief is so, you know, prolonged.
Present.
You know, and one of the ladies who lost her child, she said to me when she went back to work, it was an open space, open plan, you know, kind of format. They put her in a room by herself where she can close the door. So they thought that she needed time by herself. What she really needed is to be in the middle of them and talk
Yeah.
about it. So they were protecting themselves from her pain because they couldn't deal with it. So if they locked her up in an office by herself, she's not in their face all the
Yeah.
time, and they don't feel, you know, they don't know what
don't
to
feel
say.
awkward.
So again, we're doing on the 19th of July a forum on compassionate workplaces sponsored by Southwest Development Commission. So wonderful,
brilliant.
you know.
Yeah, that is.
Melissa Teed is so much, you know, behind all that work, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
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 Yeah, well, as you say, it's all about building compassionate communities around us, and that includes right through the workplace where we spend the majority of our time.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll have the launch on Dying to Know Day. 8th of August is Dying to Know Day. Every year it's a national day where people, what are you dying to know? Talk about death.
The questions that we don't
Yeah.
normally feel
Yeah.
like we can ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you are all in
okay.
safe places where you can
Yeah.
talk about everything you want to know about your experiences, how it's gone, what's worked, what hasn't worked. People learn from you. We have a death cafe as well, you know, on first Sunday of every month, run by Deb Braid. It's usually in Mojo on that Sunday at 10 or 10:30. And again, this year, back to Dying to Know Day, we're going to have it at the cemetery.
Yeah.
Great.
So that people,
Yeah.
we usually have cemetery tours
Yeah.
and crematoria tour during, you know, that sort of week event that we have.
You're just pushing people, aren't you? Right through the awkwardness.
They
like,
gotta
come on.
see it. They
Yeah.
gotta see,
Yeah.
be visible. Like find out what happens to you, basically. You know,
Yeah.
be there. I mean, and cemeteries are part of the public places that people can visit. It's not like something nobody needs to see. And this year we will be doing a concert at the cemetery.
Really?
Well, that's something came to my mind. Well, I heard about it when I was in Bruges. There was an international compassion community conference, and the guy who presented after me was a musician. And he said when his best friend died, he couldn't feel he could play on his guitar by himself anymore. Like he was so sorely, you know, missing him. So he went to his grave and started playing there. And then more friends came, and they came with their beers, and then it was like, you know, very kind of thing they used to just socialize with their dead friend. And then from there, it went on to being a concert in the whole cemetery. So I came back and discussed it with our committee here, and I thought it's a great idea.
Yeah.
So we're working with the cemetery how we can have that. The other fantastic thing that happened as well in Bruges, they have the Great Crossing. So they have lanterns where people write their bereaved loved one's name on them, and it's got a candle in it, and then it floats in the river. And it was a stunning view at night where you
Yeah.
had everything black except all these candles in the water floating around, and people reflecting on, you know, the lives and the losses and all that stuff. I've never seen so many people teary, like
Wow.
academics anyway, at the conference.
A very emotional ceremony, that.
Yeah. So again, we're going to have that, and again, there is a lake apparently in the cemetery. I haven't
Yes.
seen.
Yeah.
So that would be a nice, basically contained area for that. My preference is to have it, say, the year after in Bicentennial Square, at the, you know, where everyone can
Yeah,
see it.
okay,
You know,
yeah.
not just the ones who are coming for the Dying to Know Day activities. But we'll start small, see how it goes,
Yeah.
and then, you know, we'll make it much bigger event.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so these are this is what we say about building death literacy. This is what people start then talking about their loved ones who had died. They could, you know, don't feel ashamed or scared or whatever. And again, you know, grief literacy. You know, how do you support these people? They're all grieving. I mean, it's something that happens over a lifetime. So when they take part in ceremonies like this, it starts gelling in their mind that it's okay, it's normal, it's part of
Yeah.
what we should be doing, honoring our dead.
That's beautiful.
Quite right.
So
we should be,
so
shouldn't
every
we?
year we have a few more ideas, you know, what to do. So I hope you're gonna join us. I'm sure it's gonna be
Yeah.
publicized wide enough, hopefully,
Sounds
in the
amazing.
local papers.
just beautiful.
Yeah, so it's not about really a lecture all the time to people. It's about them taking part in, you know, what's gonna make them feel good about their loved ones.
Yeah,
Well,
beautiful.
That's really great. And like all your quotes are things that I'm going to take away and remember and live by.
Thank you again
Oh,
for your
thank you.
time
Yeah.
and for your compassion and for explaining all that amazing connection that we all need to build and develop. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to chat about this in a really such an informal, nice, friendly way. So, and bombarding you with some of the statistics and the facts.
Not at all.
But it's great, you know, if you're part of that community. So obviously, and the assets that we have in the community and what we're doing is very important. You know, it's going to spread the word a bit more as well.
Communicating more.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
And always remember,
Every day.
You are remarkable.